Going live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning. Today is Thursday, March 4th, 2021. This is the continuation of the Nevada Gaming Control Board meeting for the month of March. Today on our agenda, we will be covering any items continued from yesterday's agenda, restricted items, and casino player dispute appeals. Madam Secretary, did we continue any items from yesterday's agenda?
No, we did not.
Okay. Let's proceed then with the items on our restricted consent agenda. There were no questions or issues with these items and no appearances were required. Any discussion? No, okay, please.
Restricted item number 3 is the application of Golden Gate Petroleum of Nevada, LLC, doing business as Golden Gate Gasoline for restricted gaming license. Restricted 4 is the application of Golden Gate Petroleum of Nevada, LLC, doing business as Golden Gate Gasoline for restricted gaming license. Restricted 5 is the application of Nevada Restaurant Services, Inc., doing business as Red Dragon Sports Bar number 203 for restricted gaming license. Restricted 6 is the application of Sartini Gaming, LLC, doing business at PT's Gold for a waiver of Nevada Gaming Commission Regulation 4.080 as noted on the agenda. Restricted 8 is the application of Sartini Gaming, LLC, doing business at Sticks Tavern for restricted gaming license. Restricted 9 is the application of Sartini Gaming, LLC, doing business at Rhinestone's Deli and Slot House for restricted gaming license. Restricted 10 is the application of Sartini Gaming, LLC, doing business at Rhinestone's Country Bar and Dance Hall for restricted gaming license. Restricted 11 is the application of Crawford Coin, Inc., doing business at Green Valley Grocer number 4 for restricted gaming license. And restricted number 12 is the application of United Coin Machine Company, doing business at Century Gaming Technologies, doing business at Circle K store number 2709534 for restricted gaming license.
Okay, any discussion on these items? None? Okay.
Nope.
Would either of my colleagues like to make a motion?
Certainly, Chair Gibson, I will indeed make one. I move to recommend approval of restricted agenda items number 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, as read into the record by Secretary Bell, with the following conditions to apply for items number 5 and 12. The surveillance system and/or mirrors must be inspected and approved by the Nevada Gaming Control Board Enforcement Division within 60 days of issuance of the state gaming license, and thereafter be maintained at or above the standard that is approved. And for item number 6, the waiver of the provisions of NGC Regulation 4.080 in conjunction with the approvals granted in March 2020 shall expire on the date of the regularly scheduled NGC meeting in September 2021.
Okay, Madam Secretary.
Member Johnson.
Aye.
Member Katsaros.
Aye.
Chair Gibson.
Aye. Thank you very much. All right, Madam Secretary, I believe that brings us to our first restricted item that was held out for discussion. So would you please read into the record item number 1?
Restricted number 1 is the application of DW Tavern, LLC, doing business as Sunny Saloon for restricted gaming license, and the application of David John Wendell for licensure as sole member and manager.
Okay. Welcome. And please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is David Wendell.
Okay, Mr. Wendell, welcome. Thank you for your appearance.
Thank you. Good morning.
Okay, to begin here, let's have you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, what you're asking for here.
Okay, I was born and raised in Iowa. I moved out to Las Vegas in 2006 with a construction company that I worked for. In 2010, I was laid off due to the economy. I then opened a recycling center in 2010, had that for 3 years, sold that to a competitor, and then kind of went on my entrepreneurial journey. I got my real estate license. I started flipping some houses. I opened up a body shop. I opened up CDC Studios. Just kind of a bunch of different things I've been involved with. My family was all entrepreneurs, and that's what I went to school for. I then found out that Sunny Saloon was not going to reopen after the pandemic. So I reached out to the building owner and found out if I could purchase it.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll open it to, let's start with Member Johnson. Member Johnson he often he prepares applicants by laying out a record of what the standard is that they have to meet for licensing.
Okay.
And Member Johnson, if you could start us out here, I'd appreciate that.
Sure. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Wendell. Thank you for your appearance here today. So this location that you're looking to operate, Sonny's, it's a tavern. Tell us a little bit more about that business, what it offers.
Yeah, it's a gaming tavern with 15 machines. It also has a restaurant attached that was subleased out the entire time that Sonny's was there. I think it was Diamond Chinese. I've done the same thing. I found a tenant to sublease the restaurant. They're going to serve burgers and fries and some sort of ghost kitchen concept. I'm not real up on the ghost kitchen idea, but sounds interesting. Anything that can, help the tavern, I guess, if you have food and gaming and drinks, it's, one-stop shop.
And so that will take care of the food options, I guess, but what will you offer at the Sunny side?
We have a pool table, we have drinks, we have 15 gaming machines.
All right, there were 15 machines there previously, and you were looking to maintain those 15 machines now?
Correct, yes.
And then what other current business interests do you have?
I own CDC Studios, which is a webcam studio. And I also own GT Agency, which is a talent agency. And Wendell Enterprises, which I hold my real estate license under.
All right. And so I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about some of those other business interests. And just at the outset, I just wanted to confirm your understanding. This is your first time in the gaming space. Sounds like you've had a number of other entrepreneurial avenues available to you that you pursued, but this is your first time in the gaming space in this state or any other state?
Yes, correct.
And so what's your understanding of the requirements for gaming licensure in this state?
My understanding for the requirements?
Yes. What is your understanding of the requirements for gaming licensing in this state?
Well, I guess I filled out that application. I need to follow all laws, keep my nose clean, and I don't know for the short version. I'm sure there's a lot more to it, but.
Okay, all right, that's a good start. And so then just following up on CDC, what does CDC do again now?
It's a webcam studio. We sign up models to stream live video on the internet.
Is that considered adult entertainment?
Yes.
All right. And why is it considered adult entertainment?
The company we work for is called Streammate, and they're known for the adult content. They're a worldwide company. We recruit models for them. I guess not for them, it's for me, but how it works is we rent out a space, or we take a percentage of the earnings for the model to come to our facility where it's safe, secure, private. It's mostly, this is also an at-home job. Many of the models work from home, but the ones that can't, they come down here, if they live with their family or if they have kids at home, just for privacy.
Okay, and what happens? What happens once they're logged in or whatever?
It's more just not a relationship. It's just for lonely people at home that want camaraderie and want somebody to talk to. And
so I assume because of the adult-oriented characterization that they're keeping people company, unclothed, partially clothed, or what?
Yeah, it's an option. It's totally up to the model, whatever they feel comfortable doing. Some models sit there and chat. Some play games. Yeah, some do take off their clothes.
Okay. And so, is there any direct contact following the video streaming between the models and the customers?
No, not at all. The site we work for, they monitor it. I don't know how well, but a few of our models have been suspended for trying to initiate contact. And as soon as the company finds that out, they suspend them, or they completely close their account.
Have there been any law enforcement activities related to unlawful activity between the models and the patrons?
No.
There have been no arrest for any solicitations or prostitutions or attempted charges?
No, nothing.
No. And then the other business, GT.
Yeah, GT Agency. I bought that in 2009 from a gentleman out of New York. He ran it for, I believe, 17 years. And what it is, it's an agency that has entertainers, celebrities, influencers. We kind of book a little bit everything. And we're their agent to book entertainment into nightclubs, strip clubs, any kind of, I guess, venue that calls. We're a business to business. You know, we go out and talk to the clubs, or we, advertise. They call us. They're like, hey, we're looking for a wrestling group or an entertainer or a headliner or a showgirl or an influencer. We have a list on our website, and then we reach out to the influencer. We find out if they're available. They set the price, and then we take a percentage of the booking fee for facilitating the booking.
All right, and is this also predominantly adult entertainment, adult clientele?
Yes.
And similar to the questions I asked you before, are there any contacts between the patrons and the models, entertainers, what have you?
No, as I see it, I've never, I can't say I've never, but I don't go to these shows or anything. They're all over the country. But as my understanding is, the influencer, the entertainer arrives at the club. They perform 2 shows per night, which is typically what we do, 2 nights, 2 shows each. They perform their shows, and then as soon as they're done, they leave.
All right. And so it's how is this characterized generally? Is this R-rated, X-rated?
The GT Agency?
Yeah, and the activity that is it a DPA called centerfolds?
Yes, centerfold features, right.
All right, and so is this R-rated, X-rated? How is this characterized?
It's whatever happens in a strip club on the stage. They go up and, they remove their top, or whatever kind of club it is. And we also have showgirls. They do fire shows, and it's kind of just entertainment. I wouldn't say it's, I don't know, R-rated, X-rated.
And so with this business that you're proposing to operate here, what relationships will there be between CDC or GT Agency and the tavern you're proposing to operate with gaming?
There's no relationship in between other than, I'll be the owner of all 3.
All right. There will be no activities related to either GT or CDC occurring on the premises?
No, not at all. GT Agency, I run from my home. I don't think I've even met a handful of the entertainers that we work with. Everything's done over, email, phone, Zoom meetings. Same thing with the studio. We have, a handful of people that work in our building, but ever since COVID, has come about, a lot of them have chosen to work from home just for safety.
All right. And regarding GT Agency, it came to our attention that there were some business licensing issues that had arisen during the course of the investigation. What was that about?
Well, when I bought the business from this guy in New York, he let me know he never had a business license for it. He just held an LLC. That's how he ran it. So I just went ahead and ran it that way. I licensed it in Wyoming, the LLC. One, because it's cheap and easy. And if it didn't matter, then I just soon have it there. And then once I talked to Agent Bradford, he said that I needed to have the license in Nevada. So I moved the LLC to Nevada, and I applied for the talent agency license in Clark County.
And so now that business and all of your businesses are fully licensed as required by any state or local authorities?
Yes, they're all in Nevada now too.
Okay. And did you have to pay a penalty or anything when you went in for that local licensing?
No.
Yeah. All right. And then just real quickly, I just have 1 or 2 other questions for the time being about some litigation that was brought to our attention during the course of the investigation. There was some litigation in Las Vegas Justice Court between Charleston Auto Parts and David Wendell and Day Auto Works LLC.
Yes. Yeah, that was brought to my attention. I think the first phone call that Agent Bradford and I had a body shop for about 1.5 years, and I purchased Day Auto Works from Jesse Day. And after he sent me the information on it, I was never served that lawsuit. That was the first time I was made aware of it. When he told me about it, I've never searched myself in small claims. I reached out to Charleston Auto Parts. I asked them for their accounts receivable department. I left a message, and then I also sent an email. They informed me that it was Charleston Auto Parts. Then it went to CarQuest, and now it's owned by Advanced Auto Parts. She asked me to send the account number that I'm in question, and I don't know the account number. This was 7 or 8 years ago.
All right. So why don't you just move the court to dismiss the matter for lack of prosecution?
That's what I need to do, is go up there. This has just all been happening over the last week or two.
This was just brought to your attention in the last week or two?
No, from Agent Bradford when he brought it up. I don't know when it was.
How long have you known about it though?
It's been, I don't know, a month and a half, I think.
Okay, so that's a loose end that you need to tighten up.
Right.
It's not the kind of thing that you want to have lingering out there generally, and it's not the kind of thing that, from a regulatory standpoint, that gaming regulators would want to see lingering unresolved on behalf of a gaming applicant, for example, because part of our policy considerations is ensuring that debts owed by gaming licensees or gaming applicants have been satisfied in fairness to any creditors that they might have. If this is not a legitimate creditor, then you need to avail yourself of the opportunity to ask the court to dismiss it. And since it was in Las Vegas Justice Court, this is something that you could pursue on your own.
Okay.
You could do it more expeditiously with an attorney, but you yourself can move the court to dismiss this proceeding. So I would encourage you that whatever the outcome of this is, that you take steps to do so, especially if the original entity that filed suit is no longer in existence. I would think you would be able to fairly handily dispose of that by way of a dismissal. And then lastly, I just had some questions about the who owns the property that you're going to be doing business at?
I believe it's Deja Vu or Harry Mahoney.
Deja Vu. Is that an adult entertainment facility as well?
Yeah, they own adult entertainment, yes.
Yeah. So what's the relationship between the other adult entertainment businesses like Deja Vu and your adult entertainment businesses?
The CDC studios, there's no business between us. For the GT agency, I do book some entertainers into some of their clubs.
You book entertainers at Deja Vu?
Yeah, they're the largest strip club business in the country, and I think we have 30 or so of their clubs nationwide that we book talent in.
All right. And how long have you had that business relationship with them or through them?
I bought GT in 2009, so right around or not in 2009, excuse me, 2019. The relationship was already established when I bought the business from the current owner. Mm-hmm. So I just took over. I don't know how long he was working with him.
And you said you came about this current opportunity with Sunny's Saloon through whom?
It was a friend that is a bartender, and she's friends with one of the bartenders that worked at Sunny's. And in talking, she said that they're not going to reopen. She told me about it. I was looking for new opportunities, so I drove down by the property. Saw it was closed. It was in, I think, April or May. Everything was closed. I called the number on the building. I left a message that I was interested, and then they called me back, I think, that following Monday. And I came down and looked at it and went from there.
All right, good. All right, that's all I had for the moment. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Member Johnson. Member Pizarros, would you like to ask questions?
I would, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
I wanted to follow up on just a few of those points. The first one was your understanding again of the process. Seemed a little thin as to your understanding of this. I see that you don't have an attorney. It seems you haven't had an attorney the entire time for this process.
Correct.
Okay. You said you're basically an entrepreneur, so you're always looking at different opportunities.
Right.
So could you again enlighten me here? What's your understanding of this process?
For the approval?
Yeah, exactly. So in order to obtain an approval for a gaming license, what's your understanding of what you need to do?
Okay, well, I obviously I filled out the application, and then I need to, answer any questions you guys have. I hired a gaming company to, do the counts, the drops, all the paperwork. I've secured that. The same company I was at Sunny's before, I just used them. And then go in front of the commission. I need to, make sure all my taxes and all the licensing are paid and keep current with everything.
Okay. Have you read any of the regulations at all? Or have you just basically went on the website to grab the application and pay your filing fees and so forth?
Yeah, I read some of the, or the majority of it before I filled out the application. I looked at the property in April, and then I found out, I needed a gaming license. That took a good month and a half to get all the paperwork, filled out and all the information gathered.
Yeah.
And read all the stipulations. I've been talking with Clint over at Shortline. He's kind of filled me in on the things I didn't know.
So you did some due diligence. How many machines are you looking to have?
There's 15 in there.
50. Why is it 15? Is there a reason?
That's how many that were there. And
they're sitting in the machine. They're sitting in the location right now, owned by the slot rod operator. So you just figured you'd pick up the exact same number.
Yeah, they're owned by the Sunny Saloon, or Henry, the guy that I bought them from. He owns all the machines.
He owned the machines. Okay, yeah, we've got a couple different models here. I didn't look into who actually owned them.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because where this is, the discussion is where I wanted to understand is what you feel you need to do in order to obtain the license. It sounds like you're probably still not completely aware here, but this is not just obtaining a builder's license or a real estate license. In order for you to obtain a gaming license in Nevada, the burden is on you to prove that you are, of somebody with good integrity, honesty, business acumen, et cetera, et cetera. That's part of the process. The process started when you submitted your application. Since the time you submitted your application to now, it seemed there was some omissions on your part in filing the application, correct?
Yeah, there were some lawsuits in Kansas City that wasn't disclosed, and there's a Charleston one, but I wasn't even aware of it. So.
Okay, so when you read the application, what was the misunderstanding as to why you didn't disclose the ones that you were at least aware of?
Well, the ones in Kansas City, I think it was 2014 or something. Honestly, they didn't even cross my mind. I didn't spend any time in court. I didn't meet any attorneys. It was all done over the phone and email. No monies were paid. I had some default judgments on some rents owed, and a contractor that I hired that defaulted on the product, and I got a default judgment on. The other two were mechanic liens that the people that I had finishing up one of the houses, I think it was just kind of a shakedown. Seemed like everybody's in cahoots in Kansas City, no matter who you hire. And then the last one was the company that I worked for, or that I was part owner. We separated, divided up the properties, and then we had a disagreement.
Okay, I think our records indicate that there was a total of 7 different suits that you just didn't disclose. So at the time, you didn't think about any of these when the question asks you very specifically, list any and all.
Right. Yeah, it just didn't. Yeah, it's something I wanted to forget about.
It wasn't one. I mean, it wasn't one. It was 7.
Right.
Any and all, and okay, and you just spaced it.
Yeah, it's just nothing I wanted to think about, and I guess I just didn't think about it. I wasn't trying to hide anything. It was just a mistake on my part.
Okay, because these are some things that we have to consider here. What's your motivation for not listing something when it specifically says list any and all here? Right. And now you put us in the position of trying to be a mind reader. Why would you not list these things? Right. Then we have to look at, okay, fine. Let's look at some of your other history and some of your other business practices. So let's talk about that. Your license for, centerfolds. Again, talk about that. You weren't registered in the state of Nevada to conduct business, correct?
Right. Yeah. The business that I bought from the guy in New York, he's like, well, I've just had an LLC in New York, and da 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 da. There's no license required to operate. And so I just went along with it. Huh? What's that?
Did you know this gentleman?
I hung out with him for like a year. I mean, he did some training for me, and I didn't know him prior to buying the business. No.
Okay.
So I just opened up an LLC, and then even now that I opened up a talent agency license, it doesn't really fit what I do. It says that I book my own employees, which none of these people are my employees. They're all 1099 contractors that are paid by the club or by the establishment. I circled back and double checked with Clark County, and they said this is the license I need. So it's another regulated license, which they're going to use my background for that I turned in for liquor and gaming. So it's going to speed up the process. But.
And how did you again find out that you needed one?
Agent Bradford.
Agent Bradford. Okay.
Yeah.
So again, you didn't know this individual. You bought a business from him. He basically said, this is what you need to do, and you're off and running. We come in because you filed an application with the Game and Control Board, and Agent Bradford is doing your background check and determines, okay, we've got lawsuits here that are not disclosed, very easily found. We have a unregistered company in the state of Nevada, very easily found because he did the due diligence. You didn't do the due diligence. And then we've got omissions on that application as well. So where my head goes with all these things when I start to see it is, okay, if you were to ever get a license in Nevada, how would I ever have any comfort that you're going to be able to follow all the other rules that we have? Because this is just the application. And the application's long. It asks a lot of questions, very basic questions. I filled out many of these applications myself without the use of an attorney, sometimes with an attorney. If I was in your position, I'd probably personally always want to have an attorney so that I'd be able to get through this process smoothly if I didn't have an understanding of it. Those are just some initial observations on those two fronts. Let's talk about your businesses now. So again, CDC Studios, I think we're just scratching the surface again. So what you're doing there, again, is providing a service online. Are you providing the online service, or are you just providing the talent for the online service?
I'm just providing the talent.
And then who are you contracting with?
The company is called StreamMate.
Stream what?
StreamMate.
StreamMate. And do you know who StreamMate is?
Yeah, it's well, I've worked with them for 6-7 years now. They're based out of Seattle. It's the largest webcam company in the world. It's a worldwide company where the girls, I create an account, they log on, and they talk to customers around the world.
The girls, so you're basically a fixer in all of this. Do you even meet any of the talent that you are then sort of, are you the middleman here, I guess? Is that
Yeah, some of the models come into the studio and they fill out an application. Some of it's done online. Some of the models come into the studio, the physical studio, and work. Some of them work from home. It's just, there's a lot of freedom in the business. They work for themselves. They get a 1099 at the end of the year. I'm paid by a check every week from StreamMate, and then I pay out the models.
So StreamMate pays you directly, and then you pay, I guess, the independent contractors.
Correct.
Okay. And StreamMate, I know you said they're very big. Who owns them?
I believe it's a company out of Germany. That the checks I get say I'm not sure. It's a corporate name.
Okay, but maybe so. It sounds like you don't even know you're doing business with there.
I know who they are. I've met them, and they've been here, and they helped me get set up. Back in 2014.
Okay. Have they ever been sanctioned or under investigation for any improprieties, any sex trafficking, anything to your knowledge, or have you even looked?
No, they haven't. It's a very long process for the models. They come in, they fill out an application. We take a photo of their front and their back of their ID, one of them holding it. It takes up to 5 days. We submit all this paperwork into StreamMate. They do background checks. They verify their age, who they are. We get their social security number. We verify who they are. And then every time before they log on to go live, they have to agree to 4 or 5 different check marks they have to check. Like, I'm not being forced to do this. I'm doing this on my free will alone. I will not contact any customers. If I do, then my account will be closed.
And again, some of these work from home. Some of them work from home, and some of them come to your studio that you provide in Las Vegas.
Right. I think it was based as a home-based business, but there's some people that can't work from home, so they choose to come here.
Why couldn't they work from home?
If they live with their family, or if they have kids at home, or they just want privacy.
Okay. And then GTG agency. GT agency. Again, sounds like you're the middleman there.
Yeah, I'm the agent.
So you're contracting, I guess you're getting independent contractors and then connecting them with nightclubs,
Correct.
adult entertainment clubs, so that they can then perform live there.
Right. Yeah, it's more just to drive business into these clubs. You know, if they can advertise that they have, you know, an A-list celebrity, or if they have, you know, somebody come in, we do midget wrestling shows, we provide, you know, comedians, we have live bands, we have showgirls, we have, you know, just a whole list of different things. You know, and they contact us, like, hey, we'd like to book so-and-so. We reach out to so-and-so because we have all their contact information. You know, would you be interested in going here for these 2 nights for this amount? You know, they say yes, we facilitate the contract. We send it to the entertainer, we send it to the club. In some cases, we book the travel, we book the hotel, and we get them there. And then for that services, we take a 15% cut of the total earnings.
Okay, so
Which is paid by the entertainer.
let's use a real world example then. A nightclub in, I don't know, Florida, Georgia. They want some entertainment. They know who you are because you've been in the business for a little bit.
Yeah, the company's been around since, I think, well, somebody else owned it before this gentleman I bought it from, like in 1984. So it's been around for a long time. But yeah, we send out flyers, we send out mailers, we have a website. A lot of it's word of mouth. Sometimes the entertainers will find out about a job and then they'll be like, hey, this club is looking to book us, you know, will you get a hold of them because they need somebody to facilitate the paperwork and the flights and the hotel.
Okay, so let's just say I'm a new club. I just opened up somewhere on the East Coast. I contact you, said I need some talent. What do you do from there?
I provide our website address. They can look through it. There's pictures of everybody that we book and their names.
Okay.
I ask them to give me 2 or 3 names that they'd like to book. I reach out to those people to find out, you know, who's available, who's not. I let the club know, yes, they're available. This is the price. They also require 1 round trip ticket in a hotel room or whatever the case. They agree to it. I start a contract on DocuSign. I send it to the entertainer. She looks it over, signs it. It goes to the club. He looks it over, signs it. It goes to me. I sign it. And then I take a deposit of the 15%, which is either paid by check or credit card, however they want to pay it. And then the deal's done.
And then sometimes you'll book a plane for the entertainers.
Right. And we might book. Yeah, sometimes we have a travel agent that we work with too, but sometimes, you know, some clubs don't want to work with a travel agent because of the, you know, the extra cost. So I'll just go ahead and do it.
Do you even understand the businesses then that you're dealing with? I mean, I know that you probably have familiarity with the ones that you've done already, but I'm saying a new business. So that was the entire step, right? That was the entire process that you just mentioned. Did you ever even look to see whether they have a business license, whether they're approved to do business? It sounds like you didn't, based upon everything I'm seeing here. That's probably, you got the money, you're happy.
Well, most of the clubs, there's not many new clubs that reach out. We have like an established group. The clubs that really book. The new clubs that call, yeah, I do some due diligence on it. You know, I call them, I check out their website, I see if I can do a business license. A lot of the times the business license isn't in the club name. You know, there's a lot of, you know, doing business as or whatever, but.
Well, I mean, you just explained the whole process to me. There was never any checking as to who even owns the business, whether they're legit. And yet you're sending talent over there with you're purchasing plane tickets for people to fly across the country. You're the middleman here. I get it. You're not necessarily, you know, booking them, or I guess hiring them directly. As you mentioned, they're independent contractors, but just trying to understand your business practices here. Sounds like you just, once you get the money, you're all good there.
I mean, I do some research on the company. I don't go to the facility. I don't do anything like that. But I research them. I find out who they are. I don't do a business license search for them most of the time. But most of the clubs I work with are, you know, they're established clubs that we've done business with for many years.
And then again, on the landlord, you said it's Mr. Mahoney. Okay. And you said you believed it's him. Our records would indicate it is.
Yeah, the application I turned in had his name on it and some guy named Michael.
What's your agreement with him?
I just have a lease with him for the space.
Okay, but what is the agreement? You're going to pay him monthly?
It's a monthly.
Percentage? Is it flat fee? I mean, is it a fixed fee?
Yeah, it's just a monthly rent or a monthly lease.
Monthly rent for the space?
Yeah.
And then we also had a couple of, I guess, getting into the 90s, a theft case and a DUI, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Anything else we don't know about that Agent Bradford had to uncover that you didn't disclose?
No, that was the end of it.
You were sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Chair Gibson, I'm okay for now.
Okay, thank you, Member Katsaros. So just to go back to the discussion that you had with Member Johnson, under NRS 463-170, the burden of proving an applicant's suitability or qualifications to receive any license is always on the applicant. So the burden is yours 100% of the time. Under 172A, you have to establish sufficient that we believe it and we accept it, that you're a person of good character, honesty, and integrity. You haven't even come close to that in my view today, not even close. So then the next set of questions I would have relate to the landlord, Mr. Money. What can you tell us about him?
I've never met him. I've never talked to him. I know of him, but I don't know him. His name's
Okay.
on the building down the street. When I called to lease the space, I didn't know who I was calling, but I found out quickly that they owned it. And I did some research and I found out they owned it since 2004. And
Right.
I didn't think it was going to be an issue, but apparently you have to, when the building owner or the landlord changes, you need to let the gaming board know.
You do, and there's a good reason for that. Do you understand why that might be?
Yes.
Why?
Well, there could be somebody that's buying a building just to get the gaming or to, do something under the table.
To share in revenue, potentially, gaming revenue, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if the person is somebody who might have a problematic background, for example, that's why we need to know, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we have extensive records on Mr. Money. There's no way this application in my mind can go forward without Mr. Money also submitting an application himself as the landlord, just given the background that we have on him, potential organized crime connections, a number of different issues that would be highly problematic. So let me pull it back for a minute and just talk with my colleagues, sort of online here in front of everyone. So we have a few different routes we could go here potentially. I'm not comfortable recommending this applicant for licensing. One of the thought processes that I had before we came into this hearing, just looking at the background, was we could have recommended him for licensing, but the license not issue subject to the submission of an application, finding a suitability of the landlord. The problem in my mind is I don't even want to go that far with this applicant. So then the other set of the other potentiality is that we refer it back, require submission of application by the landlord, and take them both up together. Or we could just take this applicant separately and do whatever he accepts, whatever outcome or recommendation there is here, and it goes forward to the commission. Tell me what your thoughts are.
All right, so I think with regards to the landlord piece and any requirement for an application, we might need the assistance of Mr. Somps to determine whether any action could be taken, for example, by the board with regards to requiring the landlord to file an application. With regards to this applicant before us, one thing I wanted to do before I finished offering some comments, I did want to talk to the applicant and give him a closing opportunity on the question of suitability. I was going to come back around to that issue of character suitability and the burden that must be met. And I wanted to give you an opportunity, Mr. Wendell, to basically offer up a closing argument, if you would. You heard the chair's references to the statutory guidelines for qualifying for a gaming license, person of good character, honesty, integrity, their record, business associations, habits, reputations, et cetera, do not pose a threat to the interest of gaming. And so, as everyone has mentioned today, that responsibility is yours to show, yours to establish. There have been some concerns about omissions on the applications and undisclosed lawsuits, and I would note that at least 3 of those lawsuits, you were the plaintiff, not the defendant. in there. But I did want to just hear from you before I went any further on just offering my own thoughts on perhaps disposing of this. What's your closing argument in terms of whether or not you meet the criteria of qualifications for gaming licensing based on what you've heard so far?
Well, as far as the businesses that I own, I didn't get in the adult business just to get in the adult business. I got into business just to make a living. The fact that it is adult related, I don't have contact with hardly anybody in the business. Everything's above the table, everything's licensed, everything's taxed. As far as my relationship with Deja Vu, it was established in, I guess, 2019 when I purchased GT Agency. I do book some talent into their clubs. Other than that, I have no relationship with them at all, other than now that they're my landlord, which I was not aware of, at the time of reaching out to Sunny Saloon. As far as all the lawsuits in Kansas City, yes, it did happen. We bought a bunch of properties and tried to flip the houses. We ran into some issues. There was nothing I was trying to hide. It was just omitted just out of forgetfulness. As soon as Agent Bradford asked me about them, I typed up a narrative on each case and explained them. The Charleston Auto parts I was not even aware of. It was never served to me, and I wasn't made aware of it. But I can get that cleared up.
Okay.
I'm just looking for another opportunity.
Anything affirmative otherwise to offer in terms of you as a person of character, suitability, integrity, what have you?
Yeah, I'm just a Midwestern boy that worked hard all of his life, and I'm just looking for more opportunities and to better myself and my life. And the fact that I'm like the Mr. Rogers of the adult industry. I'm not, everybody has their perspective on what the adult industry looks like. I'm not a strip club owner. I don't sit down at the clubs every night. I don't, call the girls. It's very, very business oriented here. I provide a service. I get paid for that service. Everything. There's nothing shady over here.
All right, I appreciate that. Difficult for me to visualize Mr. Rogers and a strip club. And speaking of the strip clubs, I don't want necessarily the notion to be that there's this prurient mindset that strip clubs are somehow the scourge of the universe or what have you. There have been some concerns over the years by gaming regulators that some strip locations may have had relationships with organized crime elements or may be involved with sex trafficking, but I don't want to tarnish the entire strip club industry. If I'm not mistaken, there are a couple of adult entertainment locations that actually have gaming licenses. I had questions in those instances whether those locations were suitable for the conduct of gaming, and I stated those on the record each time. So I don't want to disparage, though, the entire adult entertainment industry. I do appreciate your answering questions about that aspect of it. I'll just offer you my thoughts. I think you seem to be an earnest entrepreneur. I'm not quite sure you realize the undertaking that at hand, the level of inquiry and investigation that is involved in gaming application and gaming licensure. This was not a well-constructed application, not a well-constructed presentation of an application. I think there's some work to be done. I think you could hit that mark. I do have some concerns that you need to do a little bit more work on this application, and there needs to be perhaps a little bit more investigative work done in connection with this application. And I think if it were to go forward today or at some point in the future, I think it's good to have a slot root operator. And I think you've entered into a contract with the slot root operator. And I think it would be beneficial for you to take the restricted gaming course. Have you had a chance to look into that yet?
Yeah, I registered for the one in May.
The one in May. All right, very good. So I think you could get there. I perhaps would be inclined to share in the concern that we're not quite there yet today, and there needs to be some additional work. And as I said, with regards to that pending suit in Las Vegas Justice Court, That's something that I would think you would leave from today, from this session, and go and initiate the process of getting that dismissed. So if there is a referral of this application back to staff for some additional investigative work, I would likely be inclined to support that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Katsaros, would you share your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll start in summary. I agree with the decision, or if that is the decision you'd like to take, which is a referral back to staff on this. I don't think it's right for a recommendation to the commission. On the other hand, I will note, as Member Johnson just did, a number of these lawsuits he didn't disclose where he was the plaintiff. So it seems to be perhaps just shoddy work, but nonetheless, that wouldn't necessarily be a disqualifying event for me in order to, prevent me from recommending an approval. But there's too much here on this one. I don't think he's met the bar whatsoever. I certainly don't think a denial in any scenario, or in this scenario whatsoever, would be called for, but I've been wrong before. But in this case, I would certainly suggest and agree with a referral back to staff. And then we can deal with it further through the investigative process as needed.
Okay, Mr. Somps, tell us what our options are with regard to the landlord. Mr. Somps?
Sorry about that. As you indicated, you could make a recommendation for approval to the commission with a condition that the landlord file an application for finding a suitability. That is an option on the table. Alternatively, as you indicated, you could refer it back to staff with the understanding that this wouldn't be taken up again by the board until there is an application by the landlord.
Okay. And a referral back to staff with that understanding, would that require a motion? Or is that something done administratively? Something done just?
You could do that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I'll refer it back to staff then with the understanding that we'd like an application. We need an application for Mr. Money as well to take up at the same time as your application. And your application needs some additional, as Member Johnson mentioned, some additional investigative work and some disclosure and just cleaning it up. So that's what I'll do. Is that okay, Mr. Labadie? Do we hit the mark there?
Yep, got it. You're covered.
Good. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Wendell.
Thank you.
Appreciate your appearance.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's let him queue out. Madam Secretary, would you please read into the record restricted number 2?
Restricted number 2 is the application of Taco Dive Bar LLC, doing business as Taco Dive Bar for restricted gaming license, and the applications of Todd Michael Schultz and Georgia Schultz for licensure as a member and manager.
Thank you. Welcome, and please state your names for the record.
Good morning.
Good morning.
For the record, my name is Todd Schultz, and this is my wife.
Good morning. My name is Georgia Schultz.
Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Schultz.
Thank you.
So we have an application for you two here before us today on the restricted agenda. Please tell us a little bit tell us about yourselves, your background, what you're asking for here, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary. Also, I'd like to say thank you to Mr. Peters and Mr. Robertson, who handled our investigation process throughout this. A little introduction about myself. I was born in Hammond, Indiana. I joined the Marine Corps when I was 18 years old, where I got involved with unmanned aviation. After my Marine Corps enlistment was up, I began a career in the unmanned aviation field with about a total of about 18 years total experience. I'm familiar with FAA licensing, understanding rules and regulations, how to prepare for those regulations, how to follow. My wife and I, we moved out to Las Vegas in 2015, and we've since been out here starting a life and establishing businesses.
Thanks, Mrs. Schultz. Tell us about yourself.
I want to also thank everybody for giving us the opportunity to present our case. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Madam Secretary, my name is Georgia Schultz. I am from Toronto, Canada. I'm a Canadian. I moved out to Las Vegas with Todd in 2015. I have an education in arts and design, and I have extensive work experience in the hospitality restaurant industry in all sorts, front of house and back of house, whether it is cooking, managing, serving, bartending, nightclubs, bars, taverns, you name it, I've done it. Including, we have our own restaurant that we opened, the Modern Vegan, including the Modern Vegan. I have over 18 years experience in the service industry. And yes, we opened up the Modern Vegan in March of 2018, and it's doing very well. We did overcome all the obstacles thrown our way with COVID, followed all the rules and regulations that we had to, and our business right now is doing really, really well. And it has given us the opportunity to be able to venture out and open up a new place called Taco Dive Bar. I have a great passion for restaurant design, and my real estate agent that I work with found us this spot that was in desperate need of some TLC, and we met all the requirements. We leased the spot, and it has a grandfather license in there. So we have 14 gaming machines that we want to obtain the license for, and we've renovated it. It's basically a work of art now. It's really beautiful. It's going to have a plant-based kitchen, and we feel that having gaming is really vital for the look and feel of the bar. So it's not like a plant-based restaurant bar. We really want it to be a dive bar with entertainment, a place for locals to go after work, have a great sense of community. And we've also, we have a license agreement with Golden Gaming as well. That was one of the stipulations that we needed for the application.
Yeah.
Do you want to take over?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the reasons we chose Golden as our slot route operator is because we believe they're held in very high regard here in the Las Vegas Valley. And we wanted to partner with somebody with that kind of backing, that kind of clout within the community that, very trustworthy. Also, due to our lack of experience in gaming, we both completed our seminars. We do understand the process. We understand that our application had to be kind of put through quickly due to location suitability. We signed our lease in February of 2020. And as we were starting to get appointments to put in for license applications with the county and further on with the state, everything kind of shut down with the pandemic in March.
Literally the day that we were going to turn in our application, they announced that everything's closed.
So for the state gaming application, it was actually submitted in June of 2020. And at the very end of August of 2020, I received feedback that I need to update some materials, including like having gaming language within our operating agreement, and also presenting an actual slot route agreement, which it's just one of those things that I believe typically the slot route operator likes to wait till we're further along in the investigation process. So kind of going back and forth on that, trying to figure out questions. Our full and final application was submitted in mid-October of 2020. And so again, in about December, Mr. Robertson reached out and kind of asked if we still intended on doing this. And I told him that absolutely, and it was great to hear from him, and promised him that we would be available at moment's notice, quick turnaround on any questions throughout the application process in order to see this through. I've watched, both of us have watched many of these conferences just to kind of understand what's expected of us. And we do understand that, you know, the most important thing is having high character, having integrity, being truthful, open and honest with investigators, and understanding that even with slot route operators and other people like that involved, it's still always on us to ensure that we're following all the rules and regulations. And I believe that's all we have for our presentation. And with that, we'd like to turn it over for any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Schultz. And I would just state for the record that you did serve in the Marine Corps, and you were a sergeant. You operated unmanned aircraft systems, and you did that from November 30, 1998 to November 29 of 2003. And you were honorably discharged. So thank you for your service. That's wonderful service. So candidly, as I looked at the background and we went through our process, our investigative process, and discussed with our investigators, the one challenge that I'm now going to ask you about was just the development of the application itself. So I understand the timeline better now, and I'm glad we had a chance to talk to you today. So February was just on the cusp of everything closing down, beginning of March with COVID. So that makes sense. Tell me, first of all, who filled out the initial application?
Yeah, we filled it out together.
Okay. So the first submission or set of submissions was in June of 2020. Is that recollection? Does that match your recollection? Okay. Okay. And you were missing a number of documents, and there was a subsequent submission that was in October of 2020, and the grandfathering sort of provision or issue came up in the process that post October 2020. And I think it was, this was completed, it looks like in December of 2020, the application process was December 18th of 2020. The other thing, so even with those background issues, and my colleagues will ask additional questions, I'm sure, about those, I'd note that you've acquitted yourselves well today. I think your presentation was good. You appear honest and earnest, and I appreciate your candor with regard to why things went the way they did. Tell us a little bit about any omissions that might have occurred in the course of processing or developing your applications, and why that might have happened.
So that falls on me, and I do want to apologize for that. There was a section in the personal history report that asked about lawsuits. And again, I want to be 100% truthful. It was not done on purpose, and I was not trying to be deceitful in any way. There were three separate instances. One was with CNS Construction. They did work on our home. We bought a home built in 1965, and we completely remodeled it. It's in a historical neighborhood, and we remodeled it because it was going to be our family home where we would start a family. We did a lot of work to it. They messed up our windows. Long story short, our windows were supposed to be like 6 inches higher, like folding windows that open up to your backyard. So I was really upset, and we wanted them to fix the problem. They tried to blame it on the window company. The window company was like, it's definitely not our fault. We went off of their measurements, and immediately the company, CNS, they put a lien on our home. We owed them like $3,000 or $5,000. It was a very small amount of money. And we went to small claims court with them, and the judge sided with them, and we paid them. I think actually we came to a conclusion that we were to pay them half. and we settled our debt with them 100%. The lien was removed from our home. So that was completely settled. I am so sorry, and I do apologize that I never disclosed that on my personal history report. Honestly, it never even came to my mind that it was like a lawsuit. Like I never felt like, you know what I mean? Like it was a lawsuit against us. So that was that. The other instance was with Cintas. They provide chemicals and towels and uniform cleaning, stuff like that for restaurants. When we opened the Modern Vegan in 2018, we were approached by one of their reps who happened to be a friend of one of our friends. So, you know, we started using them. They were charging us quite a bit. And I found another company that was going to be able to provide the same services, which is called Alsco. So I started an agreement with them, and I canceled my services with Cintas. And it was at that point when I called them to cancel. And this was, I believe, in October of 2018. Or was it 2019? 2019, sorry. Was it 2019? It was 2018, sorry, it was 2018. It was right when the Modern Vegan had opened. We opened in March, this was in October, November. I called Cintas to cancel our services. The president there was fuming. He's like, you're under contract for 5 years. And I told him, I have not signed a contract. Like, please show me this contract that I've signed. Anyway, months went by. And then I got something in the mail that we were being like, he wanted $26,000. So of course my lawyer handled it, and they could not provide us with any contract that was signed by me, and they dismissed it. And I have proof of the dismissal as well. Again, I never disclosed this in my personal history report because we never went to court. It was just, I didn't even feel like, it didn't even come to my mind as a lawsuit. You know, I was not trying to be deceitful in any way. It just was not something that came to my mind. If it had come, like, I have nothing to hide, it was nothing really bad, I would have disclosed it. And then lastly, this one, when Mr. Peters asked me about it, I was like, oh my God, I haven't even thought about that in years. When we opened the Modern Vegan, in the beginning stages, I found this lady. I had made job applications on like Craigslist, and she applied as a head chef, like somebody that was going to run my kitchen. Her name was Michelle. What was her name? Dagrizakos. Anyway, she asked me, so we worked together on a few recipes, maybe like collectively like 10 hours, okay, over the course of maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And she asked me for an advance. I told her I couldn't start actually paying her until the restaurant was open, you know. She volunteered her time to kind of test like corn dog batter, stuff like that at my house, like twice, you know. She asked me for an advance, you know, she said, you know, she wants the position. Can I have an advance? I gave her $2,000 cash. And after I gave her the money, like 10 days later or 2 weeks later, she told us that she was not going to be able to be the head chef for the restaurant. And I told her, please give me back my money, because that was not the agreement. And you haven't fulfilled any kind of work that would, you know, make sense for me to pay you $2,000. And she refused. And I just online filed on small claims court to take her to court for the $2,000. And now fast forward, restaurant open, I ran that kitchen, I trained everybody, I hired people for the correct positions, and I never went to the court case because I believe in karma and positivity, and I just felt like focusing my energy and taking my energy away from the restaurant to pursue this $2,000 thing in court and try to get $2,000 from her, which she obviously desperately needed. She has 3 children. I just felt like I'm gonna just leave that, you know. And that I never even, like the same with all the other 2 instances, I never really considered it a lawsuit to disclose in my personal history report. I do apologize, and I do want you know, Mr. Chairman, Madam Secretary, and all the members of the board to know I truly do apologize for that. I was not trying to be deceitful in any way.
Thank you for that background. I appreciate that.
You're
Just,
welcome.
for the record, you had no attorney helping you fill this application out. Is that correct?
No, we didn't. We did it together, my husband and I.
Okay. I will turn it over to my colleagues for additional questions on your background, but thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both again for appearing today. I do want to hear about one more omission. Well, I don't say it was an omission. There was a disclosure here about your green card status.
Right. Right.
You did
Okay.
disclose this, correct?
Pardon me?
This disclosed, I'm looking at my
Yes,
notes.
yes, it was.
Okay, can you walk me through this?
Yeah, of course. Yes. Okay, so Todd and I got married. We hired an attorney. He did all my paperwork. I got my green card. 30 days prior to the green card, I'm sorry, 90 days prior to your green card, 90, right? 90 days prior to your green card expiring, it is your due diligence. You're supposed to file a particular form, and then they would grant you your permanent resident card, okay? And, you know, it was, I don't know how many thousands of dollars to have my lawyer do it. And Todd and I were just like, it's one form, we can do it ourselves, okay? So at the time I was pregnant and I had an extremely difficult pregnancy, and we totally forgot. My green card actually expired, and it was after traveling with our baby. We went on our first vacation together, and coming back, I was like, oh my God, I have an expired green card, you know? So I went online, I filed the form that I thought I had to file with the UCIS. So I fill out the form, and then it said in progress, okay? So we checked back weekly. It said in progress. For 1 year and 1 month, it said in progress, okay? Then in December of 2020, we got a letter sent to our home that my green card application was declined because I filled out the wrong form. I filled out an I-90 and I was supposed to fill out an I-175. So then we involved my lawyer again. Yes, Mr. Vanderwhite in LA. He's very skilled in these matters. It's all that he does. He's amazing. So literally within 24 hours, we gave him all the information that he needed. He filed my form right away, because there's a way that you can file it where like the form that he filed kind of, you know, it's a specific form, like why we didn't file the form 90 days prior to my green card expiring, right? That's the I-175. So he filled that out, sent it out. He's very confident that I'm going to get my green card. I should have it hopefully by mid-year. He said that there is a really long delay with the COVID now. You know, it does take longer than it should. But as of right now, my standing, I am a legal permanent resident of the United States. I'm just waiting on the green card to come back.
What was the reason that you provided on the form as to why it wasn't filled out within that window?
The pregnancy. I had like 34 hours of labor. It was bad near the end of it. And that was right when we were supposed to fill out the paperwork. It was bad. Like I couldn't walk for 2 months. It was hard. Yeah.
I'm glad you're okay now, at least.
I'm okay now. It was worth it. We have a beautiful baby boy. His name is Cody. But you know, that was the reason. It was totally our fault, but always have a lawyer for matters like this. I've learned my lesson.
It's often helpful. Right?
Yep.
I'm the non-lawyer. I'm the non-lawyer of the three that you're talking to right now.
Yeah, you know, even when we opened the Modern Vegan, I applied for we have a liquor license there, all of that. I never used a lawyer. I did my own paperwork, you know. We're pretty good at doing stuff like that. But with the green card issue, like when they told me I filled out the wrong form, I was like, oh my God, we've been waiting for 11 months. We haven't traveled anywhere. You know, like I can't leave the United States, you know. Yep. Well, there's COVID. Understood. It's not like I could go anywhere, but my husband and I do love to travel. You know, we're pretty big travelers, and now it's unfortunate we have to wait for this green card, so we can't really plan vacations out of the United States.
Well, understood. And I know our staff did confirm that you're still legally here and you're able to work. Yeah. So that's good, because that would have been, had that been an issue,
Right. No, my green card
I don't
is,
even see this conversation going any further if that was,
no.
standing.
They would have revoked my green card. It's not revoked.
Understood.
All right.
Okay, so that's in process. That's good. I did want to ask a little bit about your modern vegan.
Okay.
It seems you have 2 locations, one in Vegas, one in San Diego.
That is correct. However, we recently closed our location in San Diego, actually last weekend.
Okay.
We're working diligently with our landlords. We also have hired a business broker down there they're going to vet somebody else to take over the lease. We actually have like 4 or 5 prospective people that we're looking at. So we're selling that business. We kind of made the decision together that we wanted to focus on Taco Dive Bar and not have our attention kind of spread out with San Diego. I don't want to leave my baby. So we just decided, you know what, like, let's close the doors there and really focus on our businesses in Las Vegas.
So you'll keep the modern vegan in Vegas still.
The Modern Vegan in Vegas is like the #1 vegan restaurant in Las Vegas. It's doing great. We're really passionate about it. We're proud of ourselves. And yeah, we just want to like expand and Taco Dive Bars. It's at 700 East Naples Drive. We serve like American comfort food. It's all 100% plant-based, but you wouldn't even be able to tell the difference. It's yeah, really cool menu.
I'm sometimes a vegan, except when I eat ribs. So maybe
you should come and try it.
Okay. I probably will one of these days.
You should.
I did note your background too was heavy into F&B, as I term it, with some of your other jobs that you've had.
Right.
You did hear probably the exchange that we had with the applicant before, I'm imagining.
Yes, we watched that.
Okay, and you did note that you don't have an attorney. You're not required to, by any means. But I think you found out that this process is a little different than obtaining any of your other licenses that you've obtained, right?
100%.
And as part of this process, the burden is on you to say, hey, this is why we should be able to obtain a gaming license in the state of Nevada. I do have a couple other questions on background, though, before I get to sort of that part of it. And it has to do, I think, more on with Mr. Schultz here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we could, Mr. Schultz, look at your background. For the record, was there anything not disclosed on your background?
No, everything was disclosed in the personal history report.
Okay. And I agree. I'm just checking through my notes here. And the only real question, it looks like we had a couple of issues in late 2000 or somewhere in 2009, 2012. But what I wanted to focus on was the incident in July of 2017 at the Paris. You want to explain to me what happened there?
Yes. So in that incident, we had family guests come out to Las Vegas, and we all went out to the strip. We walked. We had been drinking, and we had a little bit too much to drink. And so at that point, we had made the decision that we were going to go home. And we were right around the Paris, which, if you're familiar with the area, it was extremely busy and extremely confusing trying to get an Uber.
In 2017.
So at the time that incident occurred, I was trying to physically guide my wife because, again, we were all a little bit intoxicated, and I was trying to keep everybody together. She wanted to sit down. I was trying to get her to come get a cab. And she kind of like kicked at me a little bit, not to be like in any sort of way threatening, but maybe more obnoxious. And I kind of like grabbed her leg and grabbed it and pushed it away. And she kind of fell over from her seat. And I was immediately picked up by a security guard, like within like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And carried through the casino floor to the holding center where I was picking up and taken in detention for a domestic incident, which I later hired a lawyer, and the case ended up being dismissed after I completed courses that were mandated through the judgment.
And what steps did you have to take to get it dismissed?
I had to stay out of trouble for a period of time. I believe it was 12 months.
That was a long time.
And complete a, I believe the course is called it's just a domestic violence training course.
How many courses did you have to take?
Just the one.
Okay. And so all that, was there any other physical interaction between the two of you?
No.
In that regard, you're saying you literally just pushed your wife's leg away and you got tackled and thrown in jail?
Yeah, they said that they saw him. They said that they saw him hit me, and I was like, "What are you guys doing? He never hit me, you know." And they just did not. They even took me in the back with him at one point. I was crying. I was like, "Let him go. Like, let him. We want to go home. Like, what are you doing this for?" And they were like, you know, acting as if he like hit me. He didn't hit me. I fell, you know.
Yeah. And that's
like
what the
pushed me
report.
away. Like we were like trying to, let's take a lift, let's take an Uber. No, come on, come over here, you know, come on. And I was like, no. And then I fell, and I was wearing like 6-inch Louboutins. I fell over. Literally within moments, he got tackled, you know, and it was just kind of crazy. It was insane. It was like, what is happening? You know, when instances like that happen and you're like, what is going on right now?
I believe the probably obnoxiousness of our kind of maybe behavior leading up to that actual had people maybe ready to,
Yeah.
If this goes any further, immediately
Right.
drag this up. Which
But
Okay, what you're saying is the group may have drew attention to itself.
Yeah.
And they're ready to, okay. But why would they suggest that you hit your wife? Because that's exactly where I was going with this, is I want to understand that, because of everything I'm reading here, that's what I want to understand. I understand, right. Schultz, you're saying he didn't do it. You're saying that as well, Mr. Schultz. The security said he did do it. They looked at video.
So we went to court. We went to court, and through surveillance, it like, he did not hit me, you know. The case was 100% dismissed, but they did, you know, we did have a little, maybe like shove me, push me, not anything like crazy, you know. And so then they made him do those domestic violence courses just to satisfy the courts.
Of everything in this report, the omissions on the application, for me, that's not a disqualifying event. I get it. Right. People forget, they're not used to this process. I don't look at the two of you as being gaming aficionados, right? It's probably good to have an attorney. That's why a lot of people get an attorney, but those are forgivable. This is what I need to understand here. So I needed to ask this question so I have a good comfort level that did not happen.
No, that did not happen, 100%.
You can probably appreciate, I'm looking at you, Ms. Schultz, that you want to say it didn't happen, right? Because that's the initial reaction of some spouses that are.
It really didn't happen.
So, you know, so I need to understand that piece of everything here, because that's the biggest issue for me, frankly, of anything.
We understand that.
All the other ones for me, I can, you know, be fine with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Anything else in terms of, going back to my earlier question, then, so you looked at, you heard the exchange that we had with the prior applicant. I'll throw it out to you now. Do you feel you've met the burden here in order to get a recommendation for a gaming license, and if so, why?
I believe we have 100%. Todd?
Yes, I do believe we have met the burden. I believe we've been very forthcoming. We've demonstrated character through revealing things that might be difficult to disclose in the background, and just understood that this is a relationship between the business, the people licensed, and the state. And the state needs to be comfortable that we're not going to be hiding anything, and just honest business people.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the dialogue we've just had here. I'll hold any further comments for now. Chair Gibson, that's all I have.
Thank you, Member Johnson.
All right, thank you. I appreciate the remarks and the exchange you just had with my colleague. I do want to just briefly follow up on that. I understand the difficulty it is to talk about incidents of this type. It's a sensitive subject, but it's also an important issue. And, the gaming application process is a very intrusive process, very involved process, as I'm sure you've gained an understanding of by now, having gone through it this far yourself. So it is difficult, and it's certainly not a desire to subject you to difficult conversations in a public setting. The topics, as alluded to by my colleague, though, are extremely important, though. And in addition to the allegations of domestic violence, and we have the police report as well. And the police report perhaps tells a story a little bit different than what we're hearing today. But be that as it may, not only is the subject of domestic incidents and domestic battery important, but keeping in mind in this case it's coupled with a TPO from 2018, Mr. Schultz. I don't think we talked too much about that, but there was a TPO as well that had been reported to us. I did want to give you an opportunity real quickly just to touch bases on that, the TPO in conjunction with the domestic violence, and how is it possible that those should not be character disqualifiers?
Yes, I understand the seriousness. To speak for myself on that issue, those issues are 100% in the past. The results relating to the TPO or the incident relating to the TPO was just based on behavior that I don't engage in anymore. I had been out all night. I went to a strip club, gentleman's club, or whatever you want to call it, with friends without informing my wife about what I was going to be doing. When I came home in the morning, we got an extremely heated argument, at which point the TPO was basically established as a way to legally separate us, as I went home for about 6 weeks, stayed with my family, sought some counseling while my wife was here, and we slowly began to re-engage. And from that point on, I believe we established a much deeper and the relationship. I believe when you go through challenges like that, the number one person that could vouch for my character is my wife, and she doesn't put up with anything. And I just kind of believe that I have family, I have friends, I have my wife that vouch very highly for my character. And
I'd like to say something too about that. When that incident happened, again, I was so angry, really angry. I'm sure you gentlemen and Madam Secretary, you're married, like put yourself in my position. Your husband comes home at 8 o'clock in the morning. Like I was screaming, I was angry, I kicked him out. I want you to leave. Like, I don't want to see you. Don't come back here. You got to go, He went home. I filed the TPO as a way to ensure that he's not going to come back to the house because I needed my space. When you go through things in life and like looking back, like things like that happen, like I look back at that instant almost like a blessing for our relationship, because I feel like we needed to go through something like that to realize how much we loved each other, how much respect we have for one another. And we reconciled, and we had Cody. So.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that conversation and that dialogue and that explanation. So at this point, let's me literally and figuratively turn the page and go back to the Taco Dive Bar. And so how far is the Taco Dive Bar from the Modern Vegan?
Around the corner.
Which
Not
direction?
around the corner, like literally.
About less than 1.5 miles away from each other.
I would say it's about, yeah. I can check and tell you exactly.
I'm just trying to get a marker. What's it next to? What's it located near?
So the Modern Vegan is.
I know the Modern Vegan.
Yes, it's Thomas and Mack, and Taco Dive Bar is off of Paradise and Flamingo, just behind what is considered to be Restaurant Row, Morton's Steakhouse, Bahama Breeze, Buca de Beppo, all those restaurants on Flamingo. So
Okay.
it's
Exactly 1 mile. It's a
All right, and have you
6-minute
opened-
walk.
All right, and have you opened the Taco Dive Bar yet?
Not yet.
no.
Okay. What's the anticipated date for reopening? Aren't you under some grandfathering restrictions there?
Yes.
Yes, so the site grandfather for the actual location suitability ends on March 21st, which is a Sunday. The plan is with approval on the 18th of March. We're currently prepping everything so that way on the 19th of March, our slot route operator will install the games and we will quietly open the doors on that afternoon. From there, we'll kind of stay a quiet open as we plan for a grand opening that is announced for April 3rd.
April 3rd. I
Yeah,
see.
we want to grand open on April 3rd. We're going to do like a 2-3 week soft open, kind of grab our bearings, so there's no, we do anticipate it to be quite busy. We want to kind of have our bearings underneath us before we grand open and, become very familiar with everything, the ins and outs of the gaming operation.
And there were 14 machines at that location prior to you all assuming control there?
There were actually 15 slots. We decided to put in 14 because we wanted to use an area of the bar for service. The objective wasn't to, we understand 14 games is a lot, but the objective wasn't to stuff as many as in there as possible. It was just to do it in the most comfortable way.
All right, is there any other restricted gaming near that location? If you are on the, let's see, that's what, the northwest corner of Paradise and Flamingo, where the Bahama Breeze is there any other restricted gaming that will serve as competition?
No, I believe the nearest restricted spot would be just off the strip, further up Flamingo. I believe it's called like Backstage Casino or something like that.
Oh yeah, it's a different dive bar, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought you there was not much in the way of competition in that corner. I think catty corner to that, there's a non-restricted gaming location, but in terms of restricted gaming, there's not. So, all right, let me just round this conversation out and thoughts for you. Any of these items that we've talked about so far, taken in isolation, probably would not amount to that much. I mean, the omitted items are somewhat problematic. Obviously, the law enforcement contacts are problematic. Any of these things standing alone, with the exception of that law enforcement contact, probably wouldn't generate as much concern, but all of these things together, the totality, do rise to a level of concern. And so the question becomes, is there something offsetting that would tip the scale in your favor in terms of a favorable finding of suitability? And so I look at a couple of things on the other side to see how those scales balance. And I'm impressed with the fact that you took it upon yourselves to attend and monitor proceedings of the game board and familiarize yourself with some of the protocol There's also the fact that I think you've exhibited a great degree of candor and forthrightness and sincerity in answering the questions and discussing these topics, including at times some very difficult topics, but you've displayed a level of candor and sincerity and maturity over the last few years and what has transpired that I think is helpful as well. And you've taken it upon yourselves to develop a reasonable understanding of the requirements of gaining licensing. And you appear to recognize that it is a privileged license. It's not just something you walk in the door, fill out an application, leave your form and check on the counter and go about your business. It's much more involved in that. It's a privileged license. It's a revocable privilege at that can be taken away. But you seem to have an understanding and an appreciation of the intricacies of the process and having educated yourself accordingly. And as I said, being forthright and sincere and candid in your responses, because there are a lot of folks who appear before us who just put us through this near potent exercise of trying to get direct answers to questions. And I appreciate the fact that you all spared us from that. And lastly, the Modern Vegan. I've actually had an occasion to visit the Modern Vegan probably about a half dozen times prior to the pandemic. I haven't been there since the pandemic, but I have visited there several times. I don't know how long you've been open there at the point of the pandemic, at least a half dozen times. And so I would say that it is a location. I normally don't speak of my travels to various businesses and locations, but here I think it's relevant to my thought process because at the times I have visited there, I think the restaurant is very nicely appearing. It's over by UNLV near the Thomas and Mack Center. It's a nice looking facility, very nicely done on the inside. The staff has always been very courteous, very friendly when we have visited there, which shows that they've been well trained and well recruited, and that's important. And the facilities are always well kept, and the quality of food. Obviously, if I went back there a half dozen times, that's saying a great deal too about the level of attention to detail and quality that you exhibit. And so, if you take that into the new location, I think you would be well on your way. I would caution you that there's no room for error henceforth. I mean, we've had a conversation about this record, and I think there is enough to go forward. I think we would want to perhaps do a check-in on you guys, perhaps in about a year or 2 years, to just monitor how things are going. And again, I just want to caution you that if it goes in that direction, which I hope it does, that's not a blanket, go do whatever. We had an individual just last month who had received a 2-year limited license, and issues arose in the interim. When they came back at the end of the 2 years, they were denied a gaming license. So it's important that if given the opportunity to go forward in a full capacity or a limited capacity, that you continue to maintain fidelity to propriety and upstanding character and responsibility. But as I said, if you do at this location what you've done at the Modern Vegan and apply the same level of passion and attention to detail and quality, I think you will be well served and should be successful in this venture. So thank you for your appearance today, and thank you for the dialogue. I appreciate the information. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. That was a very good discussion. So just to sum it up quickly for you both, Mr. and Mrs. Schultz, we have Mr. Schultz's background. We have his Air Force background from 05 to 7. I'm sorry. That's not right. It was 1998 to 03, student from 03 to 05, industry from 05 to 07. Fast forward, have some DUI issues in 09, 12, right? Then 17, we have the incident at Paris. Then 18, we have the TPO. That was a 6-month TPO. Sort of countervailing, we have the fact that you have a successful restaurant, that you've been forthright, even with the omissions on the application. You were honest in the way you disclosed those today and talked about those today. You have taken the restricted class at the International Gaming is it the IGI that does it at the Boyd School, or associated with the Boyd School, and you have an SRO in place that is an upstanding SRO and has a long history of business here. So on the whole, Member Johnson, I think, just alluded to a potential limited license. I agree with that assessment. I think that the burden has been met. I would just, again, caution you, I don't like to wade into people's personal lives in the way that we have here today, but it's been necessary. So it's part of our obligation. But going forward, if we do a 2-year or a 1-year, whatever my colleagues believe is the appropriate wait, then coming back, you have to have a clean background.
Yep.
We have had instances where I think people thought they were in the clear with a restricted and a time certain sort of dissolution of that license, and they were then denied when they came back. So with that, Member Johnson, Member Katsaros, I would like to hear a motion or entertain a motion for a limited license. I'll open it up for your comments on how long to limit it.
Certainly. So I agree with that recommendation. My thought process was for a 2-year limited, and that would give us a little bit more time to have some history for their operations. I think 1 year is just too short in this particular instance. And Mr. and Mrs. Schultz, for your understanding, 2 years is sort of a good barometer for you to understand that this is something we do oftentimes in situations like this. 1 year, I think, would be a little short.
I agree with that. So with that, I would ask for a motion.
Okay, and so Mr. and Mr. Schultz, so you're aware there would be 2 conditions. Actually, the one limitation is a 2-year limitation, and then the other item is a condition about entering into an agreement with a slot route operator, which you've already done. So,
And if I could, just by way of a reminder, if we go forward, and I agree with the 2-year time period, but if it's a 2-year limited license, just a reminder, you have to initiate the application process before that 2-year time period comes. No one's going to contact you from the Gaming Control Board to say, hey, your license expires in 6 months or what have you. It's up to you to ensure that you initiate the filing well enough and ahead of time to get the investigation done and get the matter on the agenda. So don't wait till the last minute, and make certain that you are the ones who initiate that process at the appropriate time.
I think Todd already has a lawyer picked out for that.
Yeah, but after watching some of the videos, we decided moving forward, we're going to be using a law firm to represent us.
Chair Gibson, with that, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Please.
I move to recommend approval of restricted item number 2 as read into the record by Secretary Bell, with a limited license to expired at midnight of the March 2023 Nevada Gaming Commission meeting on the day the item is heard, and condition that prior to the issuance of the state gaming license, licensee shall enter into a service contract with a licensed slot route operator. The term of the contract shall be for at least a 1-year period of time.
Thank you. Madam Secretary.
Member Johnson,
Aye.
Member Katsaros,
Aye.
Chair Gibson.
Aye. Thank you for appearing. Thank you for your candor.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Madam Secretary, I think we're skipping ahead to 7.
That is correct. Restricted number 7 is the application of Sartini Gaming LLC doing business at Joe's Tavern for a restricted gaming license.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome. And once I can see you, I'd ask you to state your names for the record.
Camera.
Ms. Gilland, welcome.
Yes, can you see me? I apologize.
I cannot see you, but I can hear you.
There we go. Start video. Be smarter than the machine this morning. Good morning. Phyllis Gilland on behalf of Sartini Gaming. Thank you, Chair Gibson, Member Katsaros, Member Johnson, and Madam Secretary. I believe that Cassie Hall and Mr. Hall are also online.
Yes.
Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Hall. I cannot see.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're on the, Mr. Hall's on the phone.
Yes, I'm on the phone. I'm on the side of the road in Louisiana.
Okay. Welcome. Do you have an affirmative presentation? Tell us about yourselves, if you would, at the very least.
Well, I'll start on our behalf, if that's all right, Merlin.
Okay.
Just a little background about us. We are business owners in Mineral County and Hawthorne. We currently own Barley Sports Bar, Mr. Bean's Coffee Shop. We've now purchased Joe's Tavern, and my husband is an electrical contractor who has been running Mount Grant Electric for over 20 years. We recently purchased Joe's Tavern and have sought to do a restricted gaming partnership with Golden Entertainment, Sartini Gaming, to install just some bar top machines there at the business. Joe's Tavern was in existence for 74 years, and the previous owners, North Point Financial, I believe they were called, they closed it. They were having a difficult time getting a local manager that they could trust. We live in the area, so we snatched it up so that we could keep it open for our community, because it is probably the most historical business within our community, and we felt strongly that it should remain that. Gaming kind of has come up because the customers are asking for it. So we decided to try to put that back into place. During that process, we have been working with Agent McElhaney with Golden Entertainment and Marilyn White and Phyllis to maneuver all of this, and we found a lot of unknown issues in our backgrounds, and we've been diligently working to clean those up. Some things, of course, we knew about and disclosed, and other things we have learned about, and we're not trying to hide by any means. We are upstanding members of our local community. My husband is a government contractor. That's why he's on the side of the road in Louisiana. He's driving from, I think he's on his way to Alabama at the moment. He's a government contractor, like I mentioned. Has several government security clearances, and I am currently a county commissioner, newly elected. We have been married for just over a year, have been together for nearly 10, I believe, and have grown together and have been diligently working to clean up some of these issues that excuse my dryer, I'm sorry. Some of these issues that that we have discovered in this process, and then of course the things that we already knew about. Is there anything you want to add, babe?
My name is Merlin Hall. Just as my wife had said, I've been a Nevada State building contractor, electrical contractor, specialty licensed for the last 24 years. Large and small projects, maintain that license in good standing. Transferred to a partnership with Goshawk LLC, where we're a government fuels, controls, emergency and installation and service contractor for every branch of the military. Of course, it's been fairly sporty, for lack of a better term, the last year with COVID and the pandemic that has spread worldwide, and we've been pretty active, obviously, with emergency repairs and designations of critical infrastructure servicing. But we've always been proud to be, outstanding citizens and business owners there in Hawthorne. I've served on a variety of boards, from economic development to Chamber of Commerce, to citizens advisory boards, and continue to maintain our dedication to that community and its citizens, regardless of the ups and downs that we all go through, both as a community, as business owners, and even personally. So.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. I appreciate your appearances today, and Ms. Gillen, thank you for your appearance. At the point that you decided that you wanted to offer gaming, at that point, for better or worse, you subjected yourself to a process that, as Member Johnson described at the last set of applicants, is an invasive process, one that opens your lives up to scrutiny, and during which you have to submit applications that you're required to be fulsome in your disclosures on. So there were a number of omissions in these applications. You filled out a due diligence form as you in the process of hiring an SRO. And so there are two sets of issues that I wanted to discuss today, and I'll turn to my colleagues in a moment. But there's the non-disclosures on your part on the form, and then on the part of the SRO, in this case it's Sartini, there's a failure in the due diligence process to pick up those omissions on your part as well. So let's have a two-part discussion here. Let's start with Mr. and Mrs. Hall and your omissions on the application, on the due diligence form itself.
The things that I am aware of that we have found during the process, first and foremost would be the arrests, and that was just my error, because when they brought it to my attention, I went back to look at the form because I did not recall it ever saying anything about arrests, but it is there in black and white. And then the two things that I believe that were arrests that I didn't think of because there were no convictions. There was one that was considered a domestic battery, and there was one that was a disorderly conduct. Both were reduced to something else. Specifically, well, I'll just jump into the domestic battery. That was in fact a car accident between Merlin and myself. He was in front of me and I hit the back of him. And for whatever reason, they decided that that was a domestic battery. I obviously do not agree with that, and the court did not either. And so it was reduced to, I think, an improper speed. I don't recall exactly, but that was not, in fact, a domestic battery in any definition that I'm aware of. Also, the disorderly had been thrown out, and I don't remember the specifics of that, but because it wasn't a conviction, it just did not stay on my radar. That was a disagreement where I was trying to explain it to the officer and they didn't want to listen, so I got a little more verbal. I was out of line, and that was that. But again, we all worked that out separately, and that was several years ago and was definitely not on my radar when it came to doing this disclosure form. Some of the larger things, there's a tax lien. We did have a restaurant back in 2012 to 2014 called The Refinery, and we closed that. It was not a profitable business because we had several employees embezzling from us, both at the refinery and at Mount Grant Electric. That caused many of the issues that we're going to dig into here with the tax liens, for example. Since then, we have worked with several different accountants, whether our local H&R Block, which is who before I even was involved with Merlin, that's who he used for several years. And now we are working very closely with Optima Tax Resolution. There have been a couple of organizations in between where we have tried to fix some of these errors. It's everything from taxes being improperly filed, partnerships being improperly dissolved, and some taxes. Part of the embezzling process was that they were not filing taxes. He signed the checks and the forms, and they did not ever mail them in. They kept the money, took the money out of the account for themselves. So we were not, I say we now because we are married now, but we were not aware of those things until the IRS came calling to collect some of those filings. We can go over those with any questions that you have on that. Let me see if there's anything else that I can. Oh, back to the refinery. That's what the tax lien is that's specifically on my record because the refinery was owned in my name, my previous name, Dore. And that I am working with Patty Camacho at the Department of Taxation, Nevada Department of Taxation. It's my understanding she's working from home and we have had very intermittent communication. I've left several voicemails for her. I've emailed with her a few times. I've provided some of the evidence of that with my agent. Most recently, I called her and left a message Monday and Tuesday of this week and still have not gotten a call back with her. I am just trying to establish a repayment plan on those. The reason it's taken so long to get that into place is I had a business partner who has only just recently been released from prison, and it's just going to be me having to pay that. So that's really where we're at with that. So I'm trying to make that arrangement. What else? I think there was a wage garnishment that pertained to one of the debts from that I was not aware of because I had just left that job. I believe it was BJ's Brewhouse at the time. Either way, it was for a small claims, I believe, through Hawthorne Justice Court. And I just spoke with them this morning because, again, with COVID, there's been a lot of trying to get some of these things wrapped up. And the communication has not been great. But I was able to talk to Joshua Irvine at the Hawthorne Justice Court this morning. And they were not aware of the fact that many of the debts involved with the refinery had been discharged in my bankruptcy, which is why I filed for bankruptcy. They now have a copy of my discharge, and he was going to take that to the judge for review. They have not yet let any of us know what that determination is. There is also, let's see, my student loans. Those are in a state of repayment, but again, everything's kind of on hold because of COVID. The last statement that I received was, I believe, in March of 2020, and everything is current. They just are not taking any payments at this time. So nothing is in default or anything. It had been in the past when I was a single parent, where I had consolidated all of my loans, and I'm not sure where the miscommunication happened, but I was under the impression that this would have been about 2010 when I consolidated them. And I thought they were in deferment, but they shortly thereafter became in default, but I was not notified of that. And I believe that is because, as is the case with many of these things that we've discovered in our investigation, I moved from Nebraska to Nevada during that time period. And a lot of these things, I believe, service was done in Nebraska and not to me in Nevada. They brought a couple of judgments and whatnot in Madison County Court to my attention. Agent McElhaney did, and I did not know about those previously, but once she brought them to my attention, I contacted and got some of those debts paid off. That includes an eviction, or I don't know what they called it, in Sparks Justice Court, Nevada. At that time, I had a roommate who bailed on the rent, but it was in my name, and I was not aware that had gone to that, quite to that extreme. I knew that my stuff had been put in storage, and that is the last that I heard from the agent at Gunn Financial Investments, but I did not realize that they had been left with a debt, and I paid that just last month because it was brought to my attention.
Saul, let me stop you there. I very much appreciate your candor, the fact that you've been as honest as you have. This is a difficult process, and I hope you understand. Given the fact that you're newly elected, you have your husband's a contractor with clearances. This is especially difficult. I wish it weren't the case that you had to go through this process, but the non-disclosures were something that caught my eye, and I think caught others' eyes as well. Let me turn it over to my colleagues for any questions they might have before we turn to the SRO.
Of course.
I did not actually have any further questions for Mr. and Mrs. Hall here. They are the business operator. It did obviously catch my eye too, the fact that you had failed to disclose a few items, not to mention some of the items that were disclosed. As you're not the licensee here, there's a different standard, right? And the consideration for me is more on the work and efforts from the applicant themselves here. So I will have some questions for Ms. Gillen.
So, Mr. Sumps, what is the standard for a business operator in comparison to a gaming licensee applicant? Are there different considerations or similar considerations?
Well, as Member Katsaros pointed out, they are not the applicant, so they don't necessarily have a burden, but they are the landlord for the licensee, and you can consider association and the related suitability of the landlord in that application process.
And in terms of suitability of a landlord or business operator, would the same standards apply as if it were a applicant for a gaming license? Standards regarding character, integrity, what have you?
Yeah, again, and as we've discussed earlier today, you can require the landlord to file a finding of suitability if you so deem it appropriate, and through that process, that they are going to have to meet the standards of suitability under 463-170.
So the answer is yes, it is the same set of standards that apply across the board.
Indirectly, it's true.
Okay. All right. There's just a lot going on here with regards to these financial obligations that just caused me at a minimum some pause with regards to proceeding here. I was just, as you were talking, looking over the part about the student loans and the amounts that were at issue, which seemed fairly substantive. And I was debating whether to start there or talk about the bankruptcy filing or the relationship between employee embezzlement and tax obligations. And I wasn't really sure where to begin, but it just seems like there's too much still outstanding to reach a level of comfort here with regards to this application. So I understand the applicant is a slot route operator who does have a responsibility in terms of conducting due diligence at the places where gaming is to be conducted. But it does always get unique when you have issues with the party that's not the applicant before you. But I'm just going to succinctly say that there are just a vast number of concerns with this application on the whole, given some of these financial obligations and the status of these items.
Okay, thank you, Member Johnson. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Hall. Ms. Gillen.
Yes.
On behalf of your client, do you have anything to add? Any commentary?
Yes, absolutely. The initial paperwork we found out over time was light. We did do an additional review, an application in September. This was, I believe, filed, I want to say January or January of 2020, December 2019. After we had everybody back, we did do an additional review, found missing items, did submit an updated report. It was, in hindsight, not sufficiently detailed. Ms. McElhaney did do some additional review, brought that to our attention. We brought that to Ms. Hall and Mr. Hall's attention and asked specifically about those. It appears that unfortunately there were many things, sort of tentacles wrapped out of several events that she moved, had bankruptcy, things didn't get reported, etc. So we do agree that this was should have been caught sooner by us. We did take an opportunity to update it. We've made changes since I've been in charge. No excuse. However, we do now have the director of compliance review all reviews. We do now have an in-house group that meets every 2 weeks to review anything that would be concerning like this. So this one was already filed quite sooner than COVID. With everything shut down, we just didn't get back to it timely. That said, I have spoken with Ms. Hall and they appear to be advocating for themselves and cleaning these up. So that's what we have to say at this point. I think that there was definite confusion.
Let me ask you this. If you had known, if you'd done with your new processes in place and with your due diligence process that may have caught this, had it been in place at the time that this application was originally put forward, would you have brought this space lease forward?
I would have, very honestly, I would have held off until more of it was cleaned up and corrected.
Okay. So let me ask you this, Ms. Gillen, what do you think we should do under these circumstances?
I would appreciate if we would be able to obey it for some time, see if we can have them have the opportunity to clean some of these things up and come back with a more clear resolution on some of the matters.
Okay, I appreciate that. One of the reasons I wanted to have you up here, Ms. Gillen, and I wanted to have the Halls up here is I wanted to make sure that everyone understood what we expect with regard to due diligence. We rely on you to go through a process that will fulfill our needs so that we don't have to do the same thing ourselves. When our agents go through and find a bunch of stuff that isn't disclosed on your own due diligence form, it causes concern on our part. And so I would turn to my colleagues. Member Johnson has the most experience, but Member Katsaros as well. What would you like to do with this application?
I would cue off of what Ms. Gillen said there and like to see it referred back for now. I still had a couple of questions because I'm not understanding one thing, why Ms. Gillen, through your due diligence process, it wasn't spotted up. As I understand it, we spotted some of these things up to you. And I know there's been some hiccups in the past here. So I want to understand what happened here, what fell through the cracks, and how are we going to make sure it doesn't happen again?
Well, I, in all honesty, I can't tell you what fell through the cracks at the time. We certainly put a lot of these forward and we try not to have anything fall through the cracks. I can tell you that the person who's doing the investigations is no longer doing them. We have a much more seasoned person doing the investigations, which shows when we get to the September time period, and we have made an upgrade since then even. So I'm sort of a total quality management and continuous management person. As we find issues, we continue to update it and manage it. That said, I have to fall on my sword in this case, and I cannot speak to it. I didn't do the review back in January, but going forward, we have a process in place, I believe, where I'm involved in that team meets with concerns.
Okay, I guess with that, it is what it is for now, but I fully agree with your suggestion there, which is probably right to refer this back if the chair wishes to do so.
Yep.
Let's do that. I would like to refer it back. Chief Labadie, is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead and do that. And then once these things get cleaned up, we can put it back on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
We appreciate that and the consideration.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for appearing very much, Mr. and Mrs. Hall. Thank you, Ms. Gillen. All right. With that, it brings us to our player dispute appeals. Madam Secretary.
You have two casino player dispute appeals pursuant to NRS 463.363. The hearing examiner recommends the agent's decision denying payment be affirmed. Item 1 is Veronica Gibbs versus Aquarius Casino Resort. Item 2 is Ralph Levy versus William Hill Race and Sportsbook, doing business as Grand Sierra Resort and Casino, Racebook, and Sports Pool.
Okay. Colleagues, let me ask you, is there any discussion, any desire to dig into these? The record is fairly fulsome. I mean, the hearing officer did a fine job, I thought. I'd like to commend him on both matters.
I agree. There is one outstanding point for me in my mind on the first dispute. Well, I want to say the first dispute, 1208R, which would be Mr. Levy v. William Hill, DBA Grand Sierra. I don't think it will change the outcome or my view of it. I think the hearing examiner reached the right conclusion in both instances. There was one outstanding question, though, and I was looking to request that this get remanded back to the hearing examiner so that they can consider additional evidence. And all I was looking for was it to be completely rounded out. In this instance, there was a bettor that took the under and was not paid. And I think that was the right call by William Hill, and that was affirmed by the hearing examiner. I would like for the evidence to be shown to us that on the other side of that bet is the over. And in fact, in the over instance, did William Hill therefore pay out those winners, which would then again reaffirm exactly what the hearing examiner confirmed already. And that's all I was looking to gain here.
Okay, so the process then, Chief Labadie, is the process to refer it back then and ask for additional information for the record?
I'm going to defer to Dag Somps on this one.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend that on that particular item, if the board wants to remand it back, that you take a vote and remand it.
Okay, all right.
So in that case, I would need to make a motion. Dag Somps?
That's correct.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. That's the Levy v. William Hill appeal. And so what about on the Gibbs v. Aquarius appeal? Is there any discussion on that one?
I did not have any discussion on that item or the item before it. I do also want to echo the commendations for the hearing examiners in each case. In the first case, that decision rendered by Judge Julie Heimbigner in our Northern Nevada office, and the second one by Chan Lisa in the Southern Nevada office. A very comprehensive analysis in both instances. So I did not have any questions or items of concern with either of them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's take Gibbs v. Aquarius first then. I'll get a motion for that.
And before I do that, I just want to reaffirm, I do not feel there's going to be any change in the outcome of this whatsoever. It's just, again, something I think would be beneficial for the purposes of the record. And with that, okay, I will take a motion. Chair Gibson, I move to remand the matter back to the hearing examiner for the purpose of taking additional or considering additional evidence, and that is in regards to case 2020-1208R.
Okay, Madam Secretary.
Member Johnson?
Aye.
Member Katsouros?
Aye.
Chair Gibson?
Aye. Thank you. Okay, in Gibbs v. Aquarius, I'll hear a motion.
Sure. I move to affirm the decision made by the hearing examiner awarding payment to the denying payment to the petitioner in the matter of case number 2020-5113G.
Okay, Madam Secretary.
Member Johnson?
Aye.
Member Katsouros?
Aye.
Chair Gibson?
Aye. Thank you very much. Okay, Madam Secretary, this brings us to our last agenda item, public comment.
This item is placed on the agenda to give the public an opportunity to comment on gaming related matters. We did not receive any additional public comments since yesterday.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, it's been a two-day meeting, a very good one. Thank you all for your hard work, the agents involved, Mr. Chief Labadie, Madam Secretary, and that's the end of our meeting. and closes everything. So we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.